In early 2021, Naomi Osaka was on top of the tennis world. She had won back-to-back slams at the US and Australian Opens and was seemingly unbeatable, riding a 23-match win streak. Being only 23 at this time, many people, including myself, thought Osaka was well on her way to double digits and would dominate the tour for years to come. But that was not the case. Almost 5 years later, Osaka is still at 4 major titles and has not won a tour-level title since the 2021 Australian Open. People often point to Naomi's pregnancy being the reason for this title drought, some directly blaming her baby father, Corday, for, quote, derailing her career. But Naomi struggled long before she gave birth and was close to calling it a career. Yet she says her daughter Shai pushed her to continue playing. Osaka's comeback hasn't been straightforward in the slightest, but she seems to have turned a corner and could be closing in on that long-awaited 5th Slam title. Hello, my name is Christian Bassnight and welcome to Christian's Court, where I cover tennis from all angles. I want to thank y'all so much for being patient with me. This video has literally been years in the making and I procrastinated so much to the point where I've had to change the title so many times, but I'm glad I finally locked in to get this one done so that I can move on to other deep dives. And again, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you're notified whenever I post more of these type of deep dive videos. So I'll first talk about Naomi's upbringing and her childhood. Naomi Osaka was born to Leonard Francois and Tamaki Osaka on October 16, 1997. Naomi was born 18 months after her older sister, Mari. Osaka spent her first 3 years in Japan before her family moved to the United States, Long Island, New York to be exact. Leonard was inspired by the Williams sisters' success and wanted to be the Richard Williams to his daughters, Mari and Naomi. So he moved his family to South Florida in 2006 so his girls could properly develop as young budding tennis pros. Naomi, who was homeschooled throughout her adolescent years, has talked about the sacrifices both her parents made, especially her mother Tamaki, who worked long hours to support her daughter's ambitions. Francois continued to follow in Richard Williams' footsteps, having his daughter skip junior tournaments in favor of lower-level ITF pro events. Also, despite them being raised in the United States for a majority of their childhood, Leonard decided that his girls would represent Japan, a decision that would hugely financially benefit Naomi later on. But Leonard and Tamaki said it wasn't about the money. They felt it was only right for their girls to represent Japan as they were raised in a household of Japanese and Haitian culture. Osaka turned pro in 2013 and made her WTA Tour main draw debut at the 2014 Stanford Classic, where the 406th ranked Naomi came through qualifying before upsetting world number 19 Sam Stosur in the opening round for her first career tour-level win. Naomi did not win a WTA Tour main draw singles match in 2015, but she climbed in the rankings to a year-end finish of 144 thanks to success at the lower-level tournaments. Naomi also won that year's WTA Finals Rising Star Invitational, beating big favorite and world number 35 Caroline Garcia in the final. 2016 was a year full of milestones for Naomi. She cracked the top 100 and eventually the top 50 for the first time, and she also won her first Slam main draw matches, making the third rounds at both the Australian Open and US Open. Osaka's US Open third round loss was memorable, but for all the wrong reasons. She led the world number 9 Madison Keys 5-1 in the third set, but the 18-year-old's immaturity showed as she collapsed and lost the final 6 of 7 games. Naomi was able to shake off that loss and she reached her first tour final weeks later in Tokyo, beating 2 top 20 players, Dominika Sibylkova and Elina Svitolina, before losing to Caroline Wozniacki in the championships. Now, Naomi ended 2017 ranked 28 spots below her 2016 finish, so it was not as successful of a season for the Japanese woman. Osaka didn't win more than 2 main draw matches at a single tournament all year. Her biggest standout moment from that 2017 season was when she dismantled defending US Open champion Angelique Kerber in the first round. Naomi's career took a 180 after she hired Sasha Bayan during the 2017 offseason. Bayan previously worked with Serena Williams, Caroline Wozniacki, and Sloane Stephens, but this was Sasha's first gig as a head coach, and it was by far his most successful to date. The partnership got out to an excellent start as Naomi announced herself early on in the 2018 season. Ranked 44th, Osaka stormed to the Indian Wells title, only dropping 1 set and beating some big names including Maria Sharapova, Agnieszka Radwanska, Karolina Pliskova, and then world number 1 Simona Halep in the semifinals, who she crushed 6-3, 6-love. She only dropped 5 games to Daria Kasatkina in the finals for her maiden WTA Tour title, which is quite astounding that came at Indian Wells, which is honestly considered the fifth slam in some circles of the tennis world. Osaka didn't have many notable results in the months following that win in the desert. She did earn a victory over her idol Serena Williams the following week in Miami, and while Serena was playing in just her second tournament in her maternity comeback, this victory I feel will be integral in helping Osaka topple Williams in the US Open final later that summer. Fast forwarding to the 2018 US Open, Naomi wasn't many people's top title contenders heading into this tournament. She was riding a 3-match losing streak heading into the year's final major, but Naomi shared an update soon before the tournament, revealing that in Cincinnati, she finally began feeling the joy and happiness of playing tennis that she hadn't felt since the Miami Open in March. That joy translated to a life-changing 2 weeks in Flushing Meadows for the Japanese woman. Seeded 20th, Osaka really bulldozed her way to the final, only dropping one set, which was to Aryna Sabalenka in a pivotal 4th-round battle. Naomi was still a bit of an underdog going up against Serena in the final, as she was a 6-time champion and of course her idol and had vastly more experience in the slam final stage. This was Naomi's first slam final, but she handled the occasion far better than her opponent, defeating Serena 6-2, 6-4 in a contentious championship highlighted by drama between Serena and umpire Carlos Ramos. I'll talk about the implications of that incident later, but I want to focus on what Naomi did so well throughout this tournament. And I think her now former coach, Patrick Mouratoglou, offered a sound explanation during that final against Serena.
Definitely is. She's super good on the big points. She's very solid from the baseline. She doesn't miss. She loves space. You have to play smarter, not give her too much angle, and attack her when you have the right ball, which is difficult when you're a bit under stress.
Everything Patrick said was facts, really. Osaka was super solid from the ground and the baseline, and she's a huge hitter and really overpowered and outmaneuvered Serena in that match. Naomi also hit some incredible angles on both wings, and the women's tour hadn't seen these type of awe-inspiring angles since Serena first hit the scene. Naomi also showcased outstanding athleticism. Not only was she explosive, but she covered the court very well, and it's one of the biggest factors to why she had that big breakthrough 2018 season. Then perhaps her biggest weapon during these championships was her serve. There's something about Osaka's serve and the sound it makes that just has that extra oomph. And she was really dominant on serve throughout the tournament too. At one point, she held her serve 24 consecutive times. But what really impressed me about Naomi and her serve was her clutchness. She saved 21 break points in her last 3 matches at Flushing Meadows. And in her semifinal against Madison Keys, man, that would be forever ingrained in my mind. Naomi saved 13 for 13 break points in this match. And I think Maddie would have beaten nearly every other player that night. But Naomi was just crazy clutch, and there's really no way this should have been a 6-2, 6-4 scoreline result. The way Naomi handled the big moments throughout the tournament, especially in that final, was quite something. But I think her win at the very next major, the 2019 Australian Open, was even more impressive. Naomi recovered from a set and 1-4 down against Shai in the 3rd round, and then she grinded through some tough 3-setters against Anastasia Sevastova in the 4th round and Karolina Pliskova in the semifinals. And the finals win over Petra Kvitova was crazy too, because Naomi had 3 championship points at 7-6, 5-3, 40 love, but was not able to come out on top and clinch at that moment. Osaka understandably lost her cool when she was sent to a 3rd set, but full credit to her for rebounding to take the decider, the title, and the world #1 ranking. Osaka became the first Asian singles player, male or female, to be ranked world #1. She was also the first woman to follow up her maiden slam win with another victory since Jennifer Capriati did it 18 years prior. This tournament in particular really showed us that Naomi was very mentally tough. Not to mention, during this time, she was beefing with her coach Sasha throughout the 2 weeks because Bayern allegedly lied about dating a competitor, according to Ben Rothenberg's 2024 biography on the Japanese woman. Osaka announced her split from Bayern in February 2019, sending shockwaves throughout the entire tennis community. I remember covering this news, and so many people thought Naomi made the worst decision in the world letting Sasha go. But Osaka's lackluster results over the next 6 months or so didn't help her case. This was an odd period for Naomi, I'm not gonna lie. She hired Jermaine Jenkins, and the pair admittedly did not have the best results together. She lost 3rd round at Roland Garros, 1st round at Wimbledon, and she failed to defend her US Open title, losing in the 4th round to Belinda Bencic. I do believe Osaka struggled a little bit with the pressure and expectations of being world #1 and a multi-slam champion. She didn't start to play her top level tennis again until the end of the season. Around this time, she worked with her dad while she found a full-time coaching replacement, and she won titles at both Tokyo and Beijing. Naomi hired her long-term coaching replacement, Wim Fizet, in the offseason of 2019. 2020 was, of course, a COVID-interrupted season, and Naomi only played 4 tournaments, but her final event that year was very memorable. Osaka won the 2020 US Open title, her 3rd major singles title overall, and it was another impressive slam win, highlighted by a big ball-bashing thriller in the semifinals against Jen Brady, followed by an epic comeback from 1-6 love 2 30-40 down to Victoria Azarenka in the championships. But Naomi made a big statement this tournament before she even touched her rackets. Social tensions were high that summer after the deaths of George Floyd and Ahmaud Arbery. And for the US Open, Osaka wore 7 masks to honor 7 black people who were victims of police brutality. And in hindsight, that was so hard because Osaka planned to wear 7 masks. Like, she was on a mission. Naomi was widely celebrated for this move, further boosting her standing as one of the biggest sporting icons of her generation. A hamstring injury Osaka sustained before that year's US Open shut down her 2020 season, as she opted out of competing in that fall's Roland Garros championships. But Naomi picked up right where she left off and won the 2021 Australian Open to kickstart the year. Her championship win against Jen Brady was very forgettable, but Osaka scored a couple of memorable wins en route to the title. She saved a match point against Garbiñe Muguruza in the 4th round. Then she defeated Serena Williams in that make-a-shot semifinals in straight sets, and that kind of acted as a proverbial passing of the torch moment. This tournament, we really saw Osaka's progression as a player, especially from the ground. Naomi hit with such easy power and wasn't doing too much and seemingly playing much more within herself. And she had good shape on her shots and good depth too, and not going too close to the lines either. Also, she was very strong on her return, an area where she has struggled a bit during this comeback, at least early on in the comeback. As I said in the intro, Osaka was on top of the tennis world after the Australian Open, even though she was ranked number 2 behind Ash Barty at the time. Again, she won back-to-back slams and was riding a 23-match win streak, which Maria Sakkari snapped at the Miami Open in the quarterfinals. This was Naomi at her most confident, and she even said around this time, "I've never played against someone who beat me when I was trying really hard." But that run of brilliance in late 2020 and early 2021 was all on hard court, and I'm sure Naomi knew it would be a tall task for her to continue her dominance for the clay season. It'd be her first time playing on the surface in 2 years, mind you. Plus, Naomi did not have the best track record on this surface, which is understandable as her big serve and powerful ground strokes are neutralized on clay. But also, Naomi, to this day, is not that comfortable sliding on clay, and movement is paramount on the dirt. I think that's honestly the main thing holding Osaka back on this surface, because so many big hitters like Sabalenka, Rybakina, Ostapenko, even Sharapova, when she was still around, had a lot of success on this surface. Those players are still able to penetrate through the clay, but their movement aids them a lot too, and it helps them when they're in more defensive positions. And Maria, she initially struggled on the dirt because, in her own words, she moved like a cow on ice. But once she made those adjustments, clay became her best surface. Anyways, tangent aside, Naomi did not have a great clay lead up to Roland Garros 2021. She lost in round 2 of both Madrid and Rome, falling to Karolina Muchova and Jessica Pegula respectively. And in hindsight, those losses were respectable when you consider how Karolina and Jessie went on to be slam finalists and top 10 players. But during this time, the talk was kind of intense about whether Naomi would suffer another early exit in Paris. She was well aware of it too, and went to great extremes to avoid the media, a decision that would completely reshape her career in ways she could have never imagined. On May 26th, Naomi made a post to her social media announcing she wouldn't be doing any press during Roland Garros. In it, she says, "I've often felt that people have no regard for athletes' mental health, and that rings very true whenever I see a press conference or partake in one. We're often sat there and asked questions that we've been asked multiple times before, or asked questions that bring doubt in our minds, and I'm just not going to subject myself to people that doubt me. I believe that the whole situation is kicking a person while they're down, and I don't understand the reasoning behind it. Me not doing press is nothing personal to the tournament, and a couple of journalists have interviewed me since I was young, so I have a friendly relationship with most of them. However, if the organizations think they can just keep saying, do press or you're going to be fined, and continue to ignore the mental health of the athletes that are the centerpiece of their corporation, then I just gotta laugh. Anyways, I hope the considerable amount that I get fined for this will go towards a mental health charity. XOXO. Naomi also sent an email to the tournament organizers, writing that the press system is archaic and in need of reform. She also said she wanted to work with the tours and the governing bodies to find a compromise to change the system. This boycott was surprising because it wasn't like Naomi had a recent negative interaction with the press. It kind of came out of the blue. And Osaka received mixed reactions for her boycott. She received praise from people kind of outside the tennis community who thought she was taking a stand against an outdated system, while the general consensus amongst most players is that they understood Naomi's position, but also felt that the press is a necessary obligation. Naomi won her opening round match against Patricia Maria Teague, winning 6-4, 7-6. The world number 2 stuck to her word and didn't do a post-match press conference, receiving a $15,000 fine. Roland Garros officials tried to contact Naomi directly to reach a solution and even wrote a letter to her privately, but to no avail. So the tournament took matters into their own hands, releasing a joint statement along with the other 3 majors where they publicly warned Naomi that she'd face stern consequences, including suspensions from the slams, if she did not participate in press conferences. Many people, including NBA star Steph Curry, felt this was unfair and that the tennis powers were ganging up on Naomi. But I do understand why they felt the need to go to this extreme, because if they allowed Osaka to just pay off the fine, it could set a very dangerous precedent. Plus, the optics reek of privilege, considering how Osaka is a multimillionaire and can afford the fines while lower-ranked players might not. I think Naomi meant well, but she might have overstepped here and probably thought that she was bigger than the program. But Naomi eventually took matters into her own hands and withdrew from Roland Garros so that, in her words, she wouldn't be a distraction to the actual tennis going on. Osaka also revealed that she has suffered with long bouts of depression since the 2018 US Open. Now, what's interesting is that before Osaka's withdrawal, her older sister Mari made a Reddit post explaining Naomi's situation a little bit more in depth. Mari wrote, "Naomi mentioned to me before the tournament that a family member came up to her and remarked that she's bad at clay. At every press conference, she's told that she has a bad record on clay. When she lost in Rome round 1, she was not okay mentally. Her confidence was completely shattered, and I think that everyone's remarks and opinions have gotten to her head, and she herself believed that she was bad on clay. This isn't true, and she knows that in order to do well and have a shot at winning Roland Garros, she will have to believe that she can. So her solution was to block everything out. No talking to people who is going to put doubt in her mind. She's protecting her mind, hence why it's called mental health." In my opinion, Mari providing this clarity made the situation worse, and it kind of revealed Naomi's insecurities, especially pertaining to competing on clay. And it showed Osaka's true lack of confidence on the surface, which has been an issue throughout her entire career. Back to Naomi's statement, she said that she's dealt with depression since the 2018 US Open, and that could be due to the pandemonium with the Serena umpire situation. Closing the loop on that, Serena received a game penalty at 4-3 in the second set after receiving prior warnings for coaching, which is now legal, by the way. Serena also smashed her racket and received a verbal abuse warning for calling the chair umpire, Carlos Ramos, a thief. But Osaka's challenges could also stem from being thrust into the spotlight as a global superstar so suddenly. That said, Naomi spoke about her mental struggles months before her triumph in New York. After falling in the round of 16 at the 2018 Charleston Open to Julia Gerges, Osaka revealed that she was dealing with depression.
It kind of started yesterday. Like yesterday I just woke up and I was really depressed, but I don't know why.
With your tournament over and, getting to have a break now, what's the first thing on your mind that you want to do?
Nothing.
Just nothing?
Yeah. I was able to win 2 matches, but I feel like that doesn't really say I can play well on clay. It's more, I think, I'm just an okay player that was able to play okay. I'm so sad right now.
You can see there just how deeply rooted that clay issue is for Naomi. That Charleston moment came less than a month after she had that big breakthrough win at Indian Wells. Yet, her confidence was completely shook, all because of clay. In the year prior, in 2017, Naomi suffered a 4-match losing streak on clay, so perhaps that's where it all stemmed from. But it's still jarring to me that 4 slams later, fast forwarding to 2021, Osaka still carried those same clay insecurities. After Roland Garros, Naomi took a 2-month hiatus from competition, skipping that year's Wimbledon Championships. She returned for the 2021 Tokyo Olympics in July and probably wasn't mentally ready to return, but competing in the games was a can't-miss occasion especially since they were held in her home country, Japan. Naomi also had the privilege of lighting the Olympics cauldron, a moment she called her greatest ever athletic achievement and honor. Osaka suffered a third-round exit to Marketa Vondrousova, who finished silver in Tokyo. In her following tournament, the Cincinnati Open, Osaka once again lost in the third round to an unseeded lefty, this one being Jill Teichmann. In hindsight, this wasn't a terrible loss considering Jill finished runner-up in that tournament, Cincinnati. But it was Osaka's first hard-court defeat to a player ranked outside the top 70 in 4 years, so I'm sure it shook her confidence heading into New York as the defending champion. There, she once again faced an unseeded lefty in round 3, this one being 18-year-old Leylah Fernandez from Canada. The match was a grind, but Osaka found herself in a winning position, serving for the match at 6-5 in the second set. But shockingly, Osaka's forehand completely went off the rails here, and it gave Leylah a lifeline. Watching Naomi completely implode in that second set tiebreak was really something. We had never seen her that demonstrative, and she was constantly throwing her racket and screaming at herself. And looking back at it now, that moment of Naomi breaking down was the visual representation of her career unraveling, really. This was a true make or break match for the Japanese woman, and it all ties back to that Roland Garros press saga. If she did not go on that hiatus and continued playing Roland Garros and play throughout the grass season, she likely would have been seeded second at the US Open this year at least. And in this case, she would have never played Fernandez here in the third round. But unfortunately for Naomi, she just could not climb the mountain as Fernandez took a pivotal 5-7, 7-6, 6-4 victory. Yet again, in hindsight, this wasn't a terrible loss as Fernandez made a magical run to the final. That easily could have been Naomi if it weren't for 1 or 2 points. But Naomi didn't see it this way, and this loss, it broke her. In her post-match press conference, Osaka tearfully revealed that winning didn't make her happy and that she'd be taking an indefinite break from the sport.
Recently, like when I win, I don't feel happy. I feel more like a relief. And then when I lose, I feel very sad. Kind of at this point where I'm trying to figure out what I want to do. I honestly don't know when I'm going to play my next tennis match. Sorry.
Thank you, everyone.
Okay, yeah. But I think I'm going to take a break from playing for a while.
Naomi clearly lost her spark for the sport around this time, but the question is, why? And why did she just feel relieved and not happy whenever she won? I believe these feelings potentially stem from the pressure of Naomi's sponsorships and brand deals. In June 2021, Forbes reported that Osaka was the highest paid female athlete ever, raking in $55 million worth of endorsement deals within a 12-month span. Naomi was and still is a big multicultural star due to her Japanese heritage, and I think her big claim to fame of beating the GOAT, Serena Williams, in the US Open Finals is huge, and it for sure helped her, and especially with all the fanfare surrounding that championship. I remember following Naomi in 2021, and it seemed like every other day she had a new sponsorship announcement. Just listing some of her brand partners around that time, you had Nike, Tag Heuer, Nissan Foods, GoDaddy, Levi's, Beats, MasterCard, Sweetgreen, Barbie, Louis Vuitton, Frankie's Bikinis, and the list goes on and on and on. But I think one moment that encapsulates the pressure that Osaka might have felt regarding her sponsorship allegations was her pre-tournament press conference at the Cincinnati Open in 2021. This was Naomi's first traditional press conference since her Roland Garros press boycott. And Paul Doherty of the Cincinnati Enquirer essentially asked Osaka how she balances her non-tennis endeavors like sponsorships with her contempt for the press format, which helps generate those sponsorship opportunities.
The question was that you're not especially fond of dealing with the media, especially in this format. You have suggested there are better ways to do it, that we'd like to try to explore that. My question, I guess, was you also have outside interests beyond tennis that are served by having the platform that the media presents to you. My question is, how do you think you might be able to best balance the two?
I would say in that regards, I'm quite different to a lot of people, and I can't really help that there are some things that I tweet or some things that I say that kind of create a lot of news articles or things like that. And I know that it's because I've won a couple Grand Slams and I've gotten to do a lot of press conferences that these things happen. But I would also say, like, I'm not really sure how to balance it too. Like, I'm figuring it out at the same time as you are, I would say.
You can see Naomi start to break down after answering, and I think this is her really reckoning with how difficult it must be to appease all her partners and sponsors. Now, what's interesting is that Naomi's agent, Stuart Dugood, made a statement soon after this whole ordeal, referring to Doherty as the bully at the Cincinnati Enquirer and that he displayed, quote, really appalling behavior. Now, for context, Dugood is seemingly a pretty hands-on agent. He's worked with Naomi since she was a teen and helped Osaka launch her own sports agency, Evolve. Osaka and Dugood are also co-founders of Hanakuma, now an Emmy Award-nominated production company. But what's striking to me is that despite all these savvy business moves and lucrative deals, Naomi felt financial stress around this time. In August 2022, she tweeted, "Sometimes I wish my parents were rich, so I don't have to feel like I need to work for everyone's survival." This caused a bit of a stir, and people thought it was tone deaf for a multi-millionaire to say something like this. You would think Naomi would be more than set for life, but there are plenty of anecdotes of multi-millionaires and athletes losing their fortunes quickly. Plus, we live in a capitalist society, and for some people, tens of millions aren't enough. They want more and more and more. Not saying this is Naomi, by the way. It could be more of her trying to make sure that she or her loved ones never had to struggle and make the sacrifices like her parents did for her. But fast forwarding to her 2022 season, Naomi's ranking unsurprisingly dipped after she took 4 months off following her US Open loss. She returned to the tour in time for the Australian Open, arriving as the defending champion, but as the 13th seed, her lowest seeding at a major since the 2018 US Open. Naomi was given a difficult draw and suffered a tight third-round loss to the red-hot Amanda Anisimova, despite holding 2 match points. Naomi played well here, I'd say, but I don't think she was the same after that Fernandez US Open loss. I think 12 months prior, she would have won this match, but this loss, I think, definitely routed Osaka's confidence even more. We saw this on full display during her very next tournament at Indian Wells, where a heckler shouted, "Naomi, you suck," during the first game of her second-round match against Veronika Kudermetova. Naomi got emotional and asked the umpire to remove the fan. She eventually lost the match in straight sets, but instead of just shaking hands and walking off the court, Naomi asked to speak to the crowd, which was a big mistake.
I just wanted to say thank you. Yeah, I feel like I've cried enough on camera, but I just wanted to say, yeah. To be honest, I've gotten heckled before, like it didn't really bother me, but it's like heckled here. Like I've watched a video of Venus and Serena getting heckled here, and if you've never watched it, you should watch it. And I don't know why, but like it went into my head and it got replayed a lot. I'm trying not to cry, but I just wanted to say thank you and congratulations. Yeah, just thank you.
I don't understand the reasoning behind Naomi addressing the crowd for one person saying you suck. Plus, her comparing that to the Williams sisters being booed and their father being booed for hours and allegedly receiving racial epithets, it just was not a good look. I don't know why Naomi just didn't make a proper statement in the press conference, but she skipped it and did this. But this moment, while really hard to watch, shows how Naomi was kind of completely devoid of confidence, even on a hard court playing at a tournament where she had her first big breakthrough. Again, I don't think she would have let some lady yelling you suck rattle her like this a year prior. Osaka bounced back well though and reached the finals of her very next tournament at the Miami Open, and there she lost to Iga Świątek 6-4, 6-love. And I remember joking that this match was a proverbial passing of the torch moment like we saw at the 2021 Australian Open between Naomi and Serena, but That tweet kind of aged really well, I'm not gonna lie. Miami was Naomi's sole highlight of her 2022, which was undoubtedly her worst season, at least since becoming a major champion. In Naomi's defense, she did suffer with an Achilles issue that prevented her from making good strides on the clay and the grass. She lost round 1 at Roland Garros before pulling out of the championships that year. Osaka split with Wim Fizet before the summer hardcourt swing and brought on her dad as a temporary coach, but this time, Father Leonard's coaching stint did not yield much success. Osaka had a very mid US Open series, losing second round of San Jose to Coco Gauff and in the opening rounds of both Toronto and Cincinnati. Naomi just looked like a shell of her former self around this time. Lacking confidence and solid match reps, Naomi fell in the opening round of the US Open to Danielle Collins in straight sets. That wasn't a surprise considering Collins had reached the finals of the Australian Open earlier that year. And after this loss, Naomi apparently took a picture of the Arthur Ashe court, and when she was asked about this in the press, she had an interesting reply, to say the least.
I saw after the handshake you sat down, you took a photo. Was it of the court, or what was your thought there? I didn't see
Oh, it's just the court, just because it looked cool.
Why did you? I mean, what made you want to take a picture at that moment?
Oh, just to like remembering it.
Naomi also captioned her New York dump from that year simply goodbye, so I thought she was close to retirement, which she actually confirmed in her recent Tubi documentary, Naomi Osaka, The Second Set. Osaka revealed that the 2022 Pan Pacific Open in Tokyo was intended to be her retirement tournament. Osaka played just one game before her opponent, Daria Saville, tore her ACL actually. Osaka then retired from her next match citing an illness, but in reality, she had a panic attack. When asked what pushed her to continue competing, Naomi said it was her daughter Shai, who she gave birth to on July 2nd, 2023.
Shai, for me, like some people say she ended my career, but for me, it feels like she started my career.
Before I had Shai, the worst thing that could happen to me was that I lost a match. But now tennis isn't my entire life. It's just a really big part of it.
So that hits on a big thesis for this video, which is that Naomi did not get knocked up at the height of her career like Halle Bailey or Cardi B, like many people like to say. In reality, she was at a very low point and needed a true extended break from the sport. But she might have felt too pressured from sponsorship requirements or a ranking slip to take another mental health break. But what better excuse is there than having a child, a bundle of joy? I think Shai gave Naomi a renewed purpose and drive to return and fight for her place atop women's tennis again, and she essentially said this herself in an interview with The National last year. Honestly, it was getting pretty bad, and I think that's why I needed to step away for a bit, yet again. But I really think having Shai balanced me out a lot. It feels nice to know that no matter what happens, someone's going to be there that loves you and cares about you. Of course, I'm not saying that she's the only person, but for some reason, she's the only one that I think about. The former world number 1 referred to the comeback as chapter 2 of her career, and she re-enlisted a prominent figure from chapter 1, Wim Fizet, as her head coach once more. Again, while I think having Shai and taking time off lit a fire in Naomi and overall it helped her, I cannot underestimate how pregnancy itself was a notable roadblock in the bid for a successful comeback. Perhaps Naomi herself underestimated the challenges of childbirth, because while Serena and Victoria Azarenka reached major finals as moms in their 30s, ironically both losing to Osaka in some of those finals, no woman has won a major post-maternity leave since Kim Clijsters in 2011. It can take your body months, even years, to truly bounce back. Osaka said giving birth to Shai was a traumatic experience. She told InStyle magazine that she tested positive for Group B streptococcus while pregnant. This bacteria can cause stillbirths or newborns to have sepsis or meningitis. Naomi's labor experience took over 12 hours and the umbilical cord was wrapped around her daughter's neck. Osaka likely anticipated big results to come rather quickly, especially after Alina Svitolina went from being unranked to finishing 2023 ranked inside the top 25 after giving birth to her daughter Sky the year prior. Alina's success can be attributed though to her dropping down and playing lower level tournaments and ITFs and 125s early on in her comeback. But Naomi jumped headfirst into playing high level tournaments. Instead of playing the smaller 250 event in Auckland, she started her comeback at the 2024 Brisbane 500, which featured a handful of top 20 players. Osaka won her comeback match before falling to 16th seed Karolina Pliskova in a tight 3-setter. Osaka's second tournament back was a major, the Australian Open, where she drew another 16th seed in the opening round, Caroline Garcia. Garcia claimed a 6-4, 7-6 win, and only one break separated the two. This was not a bad loss for Naomi, especially considering how she was so early in her comeback, but it highlighted a huge issue that plagued her throughout her Chapter 2 era: her return and inability to win in tight moments. I think playing lower level tournaments would have helped Osaka in those departments, but she just competed in mainly 500s and 1000s in the first 6 months of her comeback. And I understand Naomi wanting to play big tournaments because they do give a better boost in the rankings if you go deep compared to the smaller ones. And while Naomi got a few top 20 wins, she did not go far enough to boost her ranking, to say the least. Osaka did not reach a single semifinal in her first year of her comeback. She only played 2 events below 500 level, both of which were 250s. Arguably, Naomi's best result in 2024 was actually a loss. I'm talking about that epic Roland Garros second round showdown where she held a match point against then world number 1 and 2-time defending champion Iga Swiatek before the Pole took a 7-6, 1-6, 7-5 win. Yes, Naomi was aided by the roof being closed in this match, but still, her coming so close to dethroning the Queen of Clay was very promising. Osaka's serve, return, and ball striking was as good as we've seen from her in years, and we thought big results would soon follow. But they didn't. Naomi failed to reach the third round in any of the big tournaments after Roland Garros, at least for the next few months. She lost second round at Wimbledon to Emma Navarro in straight sets. She lost in the opening round of the Paris Olympics to Angelique Kerber in straight sets. She lost the second round in Toronto to Elisa Mertens in straight sets. She also lost in the second round of Cincy qualifying, which was a little bit of a low moment for her. And then she lost in the second round of the main draw of the US Open to Karolina Muchova. She lost many of her matches in very similar fashion too. She started fairly solid, played a poor service game to get broken, and then the wheels came off, and she gave a lot of points away through unforced errors, especially in the important moments. I think the Iga Roland Garros match might have actually hurt Naomi because she was very successful with that redlining, all or nothing type of game style. In hindsight, Naomi was treeing in that Swiatek Roland Garros match, and this type of play is not all that sustainable like year-round. Naomi split with Wim for a second time after that US Open second round loss, and she hired Patrick Mouratoglou, who coached Serena Williams to 10 major titles. Their first tournament together, the China Open 1000, was very solid. In that brief time of working with Patrick, I already noticed an improvement in Naomi's rally tolerance, and she also incorporated a bit more variety too with some net play. Not to mention, she was on the cusp of her biggest win by ranking since 2019 when she took on Coco Gauff in the round of 16. Osaka led Gauff by a set and a break, 6-3, 4-3, but she was dealing with a lower back injury and ultimately retired after losing the second set 6-4. The injury also forced Osaka to shut down the rest of her 2024 season. This was truly a shame because I think this was a huge missed opportunity for Naomi to have that big breakthrough result to get her confidence back. But this unfortunately aligns with the trend of there always being something that holds Naomi back from a big result, whether it be a tight loss or an injury. It all started with that Iga Roland Garros match as Iga went on to win the title. Now, I don't think Naomi would have won the tournament even if she beat Iga, but the win itself would have definitely been a big confidence boost to her. Then that Muchova US Open second round match, Naomi had 3 set points at 5-4 in the second set, but she fumbled and lost in straight sets. And Muchova went on to make the semifinals. This could have easily been Naomi. And then here in Beijing, she was a couple of games away from defeating Coco Gauff, the eventual champion. Again, that could have been Naomi. The so close yet so far trend continued in 2025. This time, Naomi did open her season at the Auckland 250, where she reached her first final since the 2022 Miami Open. Osaka looked primed to end her title draw, racing out to a 5-1 lead over Danish woman Clara Tauson. However, she suffered an abdominal issue and had to retire right after winning the opening set 6-4. Naomi has dealt with abdominal injuries throughout her entire career, and years ago she said she feels it at least once a year. year. Unfortunately for her, the timing of this year's ab issue was brutal. Naomi carried her ab injury into the Australian Open and even modified her serve so she could compete. She still performed well and went on a little bit of a mini revenge tour, defeating Caroline Garcia in the opening round before taking down Karolina Muchova in round 2. She got out to a strong start against fellow mother Belinda Bencic in the third round, leading 5-2 in the first set. But that ab issue was just too much, and she was forced to retire after losing the opening set in a tiebreak. Osaka returned back healthy for the Sunshine Double, and she reached the round of 16 at the Miami Open, falling to Jasmine Paolini 6-4 in the third set, a match she could have won, but her return of serve let her down. Then, after a poor opening round loss in Madrid to Lucia Bronzetti, Osaka made the very wise decision of dropping back and playing a 125 level event in Saint Malo, France, which she won. 125s aren't really considered tour level tournaments. They're one ring below the 250s and are considered more like challenger events. But still, I think her winning a tournament of any kind gave Naomi the confidence she needed to return to the Rome round of 16 for a second straight season. There, she faced unseeded American Peyton Stearns, where Osaka was 3 points from the win, leading 4-2 in the third set tiebreak. However, at this point, something very interesting happens. Naomi barely nets a wide open cross-court backhand, and you can see her visibly get shaken up, giving a very nervous glance to her team. You can see as the errors pile up, the tension mounts, and it's almost like she's having a panic attack out there. Naomi knows she is so close to having a big breakthrough, but is also so close to another heartbreaking loss. Naomi, she ultimately lost the final 5 points of this match. And unfortunately, Osaka missed the cut to be seeded for Roland Garros, where she was given yet another tough draw, facing 10th seed Paula Badosa in the opening round. Similar to Rome, Osaka showed quite a few signs of anguish here after squandering an early break lead in the decider, before falling 6-7, 6-1, 6-4. At Wimbledon, Naomi won 2 matches before falling in the third round to Anastasia Pavlyuchenkova 3-6, 6-4, 6-4. Yet another tough, winnable 3-setter. This loss hurt, especially considering Osaka had a great opportunity to make a deep run, as 6 of the top 10 seeds lost in the first week. Side note, this marked Naomi's first non-hardcourt third round appearance since the 2019 Roland Garros Championships. Not to mention, she's still yet to reach the second week at either Roland Garros or Wimbledon, period, in her career, which is wild. I think the lack of experience and success on the natural surfaces prevented Osaka from being more of a complete player, which would aid her on the hard courts too. While injury and pregnancy are 2 big contributors to this, again, that Roland Garros press conference saga really opened Pandora's box. And this also highlights just how much of an anomaly Naomi is. She's reached 5 major quarterfinals in her entire career, and she has 4 slams. Like, that's crazy. And Naomi just has 7 tour singles titles to her name, which honestly isn't all that much for a multi-slam champion. Again, she has 4 major titles. For comparison, Aryna Sabalenka, who is also 27 and also has 4 slams, has 20 titles total. And then 21-year-old Coco Gauff already has 3 more winners' trophies than Naomi. Even Ash Barty, who's been retired for 3 years now, has 15 singles titles. It feels like Naomi's been around for a minute, but also not. For her to be so accomplished, she honestly hasn't played a whole lot of tennis, especially on the non-hard courts. Nearly a month after Osaka's Wimbledon exit, she announced that she and Patrick would no longer be working together. This was very odd timing, with the US Open still kind of right around the corner, and it felt like it was kind of premature to me initially, with them working together for 10 months. I think some of it could have been related to the pressure Naomi might have felt working with Patrick after he coached an all-time great, Serena. We saw maybe a glimpse of this in Naomi's post-match press conference following her Roland Garros opening round defeat this year.
I hate disappointing people. So, like, even with Patrick, I was thinking this just now, but, like, he goes from working with, like, the greatest player ever to, like, what the f is this? You know what I mean? Sorry for cursing. I hope I don't get fined, but...
This coaching split might have also been more of a Hail Mary move, knowing how much was riding on this summer hardcourt swing. I think if Naomi didn't have a good result during this period, she might have called it quits. She said at the start of the year in Auckland that she wouldn't hang around if her results weren't up to par. The point of my life that I'm at right now, if I'm not above a certain ranking, I don't see myself playing for a while, Osaka said. I'd rather spend my time with my daughter if I'm not where I think I should be and where I feel like I can be. That's very real. Yes, I'm sure Naomi has a lot of love for for the sport, but nobody wants to keep enduring painful defeats with no substantial growth in the rankings. And Naomi said in her Tubi documentary that she takes these losses harder because in her mind, she did not make the most of her time away from her daughter. And Naomi, she often travels without Shai on the tour year-round.
I take losses very hard. I feel my heart crack because every time I lose, I think of all the time I spend away from Shai, and I put a lot of pressure on myself because I feel like the only way I can measure the value of the time I'm away from her is by winning tournaments. When I don't do that, I feel a little bit of a failure as a tennis player, but a little bit of a failure as a mom as well.
And this was striking to me because Naomi often makes these notes at posts or captions where she tries to find the light in her losses or injuries. But to me, this always came off as merely a coping mechanism. And we've seen glimpses into the darker sides of Naomi through press conferences and Threads posts. This one in particular, after her first round Indian Wells loss, was a bit concerning. She said, "I wouldn't wish what goes on in my brain to my worst enemy." But back to the coaching situation in Montreal, Osaka made a surprising decision to bring on Iga Świątek's former coach, Tomasz Wiktorowoski, as her interim coach. Wiktorowoski coached Świątek to 4 of her 6 major titles, and he also helped another Polish player, Agnieszka Radwanska, reach world number 2. Naomi's very first match with Tomasz in her box was one to remember for sure. Osaka faced match points down 6-4, 5-4, 40-15 to 13th seed Ludmila Samsonova, again in Montreal in the second round. She survived that game and recovered from a 2-5 deficit in the second set tiebreak to win 4-6, 7-6, 6-3. I knew back then that that could be the result that sparked a long-awaited big run at a big tournament, and I was right. Osaka stormed to her first WTA 1000 final in over 3 years, taking out the likes of Jelena Ostapenko, Alina Svitolina, and Clara Towson in straight sets. And here Naomi did pretty much everything I said she needed to do. Her serve was an even bigger weapon, and mainly she regained that clutch factor, being able to serve her way out of trouble whenever her back was against the wall. Her return was also much improved, and she just returned smarter overall, not going for too risky of returns when they weren't there. And Osaka also showcased improved fitness and athleticism, and her court coverage was arguably as good as it ever was. Naomi was also very mentally strong, and she competed so well in the tight moments. And perhaps the biggest thing, Naomi just played well within herself. She did not go too close to the lines from the grounds and hit with great margin and spin, and also frequently incorporated strong and sharp angles. Osaka was arguably the favorite to take the title, going up against 18-year-old Canadian Victoria Mboko, who was playing in her first tour-level final. But while Mboko lacked experience, she had the entire home crowd behind her, who propelled her to a 2-6, 6-4, 6-1 victory. There are a few things to unpack here from this match. First, Mboko deserves credit for improving her love of the route. That's undeniable. But also, there's no denying Naomi went away mentally throughout this match. Sometimes it's like she didn't really try for certain shots. Then there's some drama with the post-match ceremony when Naomi did not really acknowledge Victoria by name, which she ultimately amended with the Threads post. Now, while Montreal brought a rough ending for the Japanese woman, it also brought some big wins for Naomi. Not only did she reach her first 1000 final since Miami 2022, she clinched a seed for the US Open, marking the first slam since Australia 2022, where she would compete as a seeded player. And this was huge because it meant that Naomi would avoid a seed at least until the third round. Naomi entered New York as the 23rd seed and finally reached her first major round of 16 since winning the 2021 Australian Open. Getting that monkey off her back, I think, freed Naomi a lot, and she played a strong and composed fourth round match, dominating an error-prone Coco Gauff 6-3, 6-2. What's wild is that this was Naomi's first career top 5 victory at a major. Like, insane, utterly insane. And many of us expected this match in particular with Gauff to be more on Naomi's racket, but Osaka took a step back and let Coco beat herself with unforced errors. And the American finished with 8 winners to 33 unforced errors, while Naomi hit 10 winners to just 12 unforced errors. This match was the perfect testament to all the wonderful changes Tomasz made in his short time with Osaka. When speaking of her new coach, Naomi said, "He's done a lot in my game in a very short amount of time that have been really simple fixes, but they've also just been kind of mind-blowing at the same time. He draws a little court sometimes, and he'll put markers on where I should hit or where we think is the best shot selection. He's talked to me a lot about the placement of my shots and not necessarily going for winners most most of the time. This was huge because oftentimes throughout her comeback, Naomi would just overplay and make some really baffling mistakes on routine approach shots, and it just all seemed mental. This renewed approach under Wiktorowoski also helped Naomi notch a revenge victory over Karolina Muchova in the quarterfinal. But what stood out to me the most in this win in particular was Osaka's mental fortitude. Not only was she clutch, saving 5 of 7 breakpoints faced, but she competed incredibly hard. There were times where I thought she was going to full-on crash out, like when Muchova broke her to serve for the second set, but Naomi kept her head down and fought even harder in ways we hadn't seen in years. Naomi sought another revenge win against Amanda Anisimova in the semifinals, and she was 3 points away from doing it. She led 7-6, 6-5, love 15. She did ultimately fall 6-7, 7-6, 6-3 in a 2-hour, 56-minute thriller. But unlike against Mboko in Montreal, Naomi didn't really fade away here at all. Amanda was simply too good in the end and just deserves the credit for being the better player. This was, of course, another disappointing loss for Naomi, but she approached it differently compared to her previous tight losses. She told the press that she didn't feel sad, rather inspired and motivated to train harder and go even further. Montreal and New York were huge for Naomi's career. I think these runs will inspire her to stick around even longer because she has the confidence now that she does have what it takes to win another major, coming oh so close to reaching the finals. Right now, I think form-wise, fitness-wise, and mentally, she's where she was in 2021 when she won her last major. But the first question is, can she sustain this form? Could this be just a honeymoon phase with her and Tomas? She did lose her opening round match in Beijing to 130 ranked Alexandra Sasnovich, although Sasnovich played a hell of a match there. And the bigger question is, even if she sustains this level, will it be enough for Naomi to nab another major? My biggest takeaway from these recent losses of Naomi's is that she tends to live and die by her ground game. And sometimes that's simply not enough when you have players like Pavlyuchenkova and Mboko and Anisimova who can handle Naomi's pace fine and even out-hit her. I've been complaining about this for years, but Naomi still lacks that versatility that the current top players like Coco, Arena, and Iga have. Sabalenka is a great example of a power player who has added many layers to her game over the years. Her drop shot has improved so much, and she also isn't afraid to mix things up with slices or come forward with net approaches and even serving volleys. Naomi hasn't made many strides in this regard at all, and I think a big reason of it is, again, her lack of decent match reps on clay and grass. Osaka is really more of a hard court specialist, and she still has not made a single tour-level final on clay or grass, which is, again, wild for a 4-time major champion. If Naomi adds more variety to her game, she'll not only set herself up for more success on the natural surfaces, but it'll in turn make her a stronger hard court player. This is a necessary adjustment at this point because a strong serve and solid ground strokes alone are not going to cut it anymore. The tour is tougher now than when Naomi was at the top 5 years ago. When Osaka won the 2021 Australian Open, Sabalenka was ranked 7 in the world and didn't yet have a major semifinal to her name. Iga was a slam champion, but she was ranked 17 at the time and wasn't yet at that boss lady Iga status. And then Coco, she was still a fetus. She was ranked 48 in the world. And it's interesting that Naomi's opening round win at the 2024 US Open against Yelena Ostapenko was her first top 10 win since 2020 Brisbane. So you can argue that she avoided a lot of the top players during her last 2 slam title runs. But this summer proved that Naomi is undoubtedly a huge force to be reckoned with on any hard court and will surely be a title contender for the 2026 Australian Open. I'm excited to see what next season has in store for Naomi and if she will add more layers to her game to ensure more success on the other surfaces. She's in a great spot right now too. She's already sitting at 14 in the rankings as of me recording this. She also doesn't have a whole lot of points to defend, at least until Canada 2026, so she very well can return inside the top 10 or even top 5 if she goes on a few deep runs at the 1000 or slam level. But even if she doesn't win another major, this Naomi comeback was undoubtedly a success, I'd say. Not only did she rediscover her slam winning form, but also her love and passion for the game. Considering she was on the verge of calling it a career 3 years ago, that alone is a major win. That is all I have for this Naomi deep dive, and I just want to thank y'all first of all for y'all's patience. This was supposed to be out a long time ago, but I'm glad that Naomi was able to turn things around a bit so I could have more of a positive spin and end on this video. I do want to shout out my channel members who got this video a little bit early, so if you want to get the next deep dive a little bit early, join the channel. Greatly appreciate it. Not only do you get early access to the deep dives, but also exclusive content and other types of stuff coming soon too. So definitely join to be a member if you want more Christian's Court content. Yeah, let me know in the comments y'all's thoughts on this video and if you think that Naomi will win a Fit Slam. I think that she can. She turns 28 in a few weeks, so I mean, she still has a decent amount of years left, but time is slowly ticking. And also let me know in the comments what you think she needs to do in order to get over the hump. Again, make sure you subscribe and click that notification bell so you are notified whenever I post the next deep dive. And yeah, thank you again so much for rocking with me and for the support. And I will see you all next time here on Christian's Court.